Hi, Moguls. It's Dr. T here, and I'm coming to you with some great upgrades today. So you can mogul on up into a more of a mogul reality where you are a more higher level, powerful, influential person that is super productive, very wealthy, healthy, successful, happy, and most of all contributes to society and humanity. So, we're going to dive in today with some awesome upgrades that just give you insight on how to go from wherever you are in your trajectory as a leader, because we all are, whether we want to call ourselves that or not, we are leading ourselves, our partnerships, our families, our companies, our departments, whatever it might be, our realities. And even if we don't want to admit it to ourselves, we are the co leaders of the world, our communities, society, and humanity. And so we're focused today on helping you as a leader really understand what it takes to go to the next level on your ascension trajectory, creating a better reality wherever you are on the path. And even if you feel like you're not where you want to be, this is the place to be. So our focus today is really helping you get some upgrades about what I've learned about getting to hang out with some of the world's wealthiest people. And this is really important because, again, whatever stage you're at, there's always an upgrade that each and every one of us can receive to awaken, ascend further on our path, get more into our true purpose and more into fulfilling our true potential. So, as someone who is both a psychologist, a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, someone that's a TED speaker, someone that has been doing some form of transformation with people for many years, be it originally this process of like therapeutic coaching, and then really understanding what I was doing was just reprogramming humans because we're software. We need to upgrade into a more upgraded, higher level program as each day is going on. We really need to stay in the update, just like all of our technology. Someone who's been transforming my whole life, and someone that is also spent years in the world, in the corporate world, transforming leaders into more of top manager, executive types, and someone that's spent a lifetime transforming myself and really being able to see what it is that makes people successful, what it is that gets in the way of that. I've got a lot of expertise, I've got a lot of insight, and I'm here to share it with you. And just so you know where this expertise also comes from, is that in my transition from a corporate leader, trainer, top level manager, managing managers and that kind of thing, and going more into the field of psychology so that I could know both leadership and that kind of transformative process and how to deal with any kind of psychological, emotional, and general human issue that needed transformation, a solution, a strategy. I wanted to cover the whole basis of what it is that can elevate a human being in humanity and do that in the most rapid, easy, most enjoyable way. And when I first became a psychologist, I was very fortunate that due to where I did my training and the clientele that were coming in to that, to the treatment center I worked in, the top one in the world where all the top people come. I really got to get on the inside of really understanding what some of the world's wealthiest people were both going through, what the challenges are that they were having, and what it would take to transform their lives, and how that would be able to be productive for them and strategic and beneficial in a way that they would want. And I really got to be on the inside track of really transforming people who seemingly had everything, but were in different struggles with their own selves and needing support in that process. And it truly felt like just being in the absolute right position, understanding that the world's top families, if they're struggling, if they're needing support, if they are not, they have it all and they're not having it all, what hope did other people have? And really understanding what was causing that, going deep into creating transformational technology that would work on, again, the world's most successful people by wealth standards, but also people that were struggling by other human standards, and really going into the understanding of what would do a rapid, very productive transformation on them, because they had such busy lives. They didn't have any time to be in a treatment center. They didn't really have the time to be in a therapeutic transformational process. Big captains of industry and people on the Forbes richest people's list, and um, people in the entertainment industry, and people just, from the empire and dynasty level reality field, and really going into a process of understanding that they had big expectations. They wanted things done at the best standard that could possibly be done. They didn't want the old school treatment techniques that had been around forever, were outdated and really kind of degrading it in some ways to them. And I really was able to be, coming into the inside of what it is when people who have what everybody thinks that they want and are striving for are in their own challenges, and very significant ones, and trying to get the transformational support and strategies that they need. And I saw it as an incredible opportunity, because even though I came from a background where I made sure I became very well educated, I have several degrees, master's and PhD and all of those things. I was very fortunate to be productive as a person all of my life, successful in sports and school and connections and friendships and those kinds of things. And having, the benefits of somebody like my father, who just made it an absolute mission to give me what he thought I needed to be able to succeed and support me in that way, and other family members as well. I really felt like I was I felt like I was already a privileged person, and I was getting to do what I love, living my purpose as a doctor of psychology, and to recognize that these incredible people that were changing the world, building some of the world's greatest companies, architecting some of the world's greatest families, with big missions and purposes and all of that, and seeing that they were having these challenges. And some of these people had, this is like their seventh, eighth, ninth time in a treatment facility, going through the same struggle over and over, and landing just back in that space, and really not also responding to a lot of the old school classical treatment techniques. And it really gave me an ability and an opportunity that I had to be able to go forth and create transformational technology, because necessity is the mother of invention. It really brought me to feel like, there's something that really needs to be created here, because they need something fast. They need rapid transformation. They need it to be amazing. They need it to feel great. They can literally buy anything, do anything in the world that they want. This has to be at its top level. And it was just an imperative, and it got me into really pushing myself to create the best transformational process, method, strategies, and the real matrix of rapid, amazing, immersive transformation, really built on the core of what their absolute highest ambitions were, the things that they were endeavoring into, the things that are the most important things to them, and building a track, an ascension out of the struggles they were having, in order to create not only success for the initial person that was needing the support, but really learning, seeing that it was a whole system, that both, if the person was married, their partnership really needed to be a power couple partnership. This person typically, right, as everybody's a part of a family, that their family really needed to be a cohesive dynasty family that operated at a higher level of intentionality instead of dysfunctionality, and that their companies needed to be not just businesses that were strenuous and stressful and straining on them, but that they were purposeful, that they were philanthropic toward humanity, that they were building empires of meaning and sustainability for them to do it and for it to create and contribute something to the world that they could feel really aligned with, versus just like, how people can feel when they're just making money. We all have been there. We know that there's only so much enjoyment that comes from that kind of just, more narrow focus on what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I really have gotten to learn from some of the, top people in the world in terms of having been able to create wealth, some of the top moguls, the top power couples, the top families, the way they operate, and be a part of that world as I also expanded my uh, coaching offerings and all of that to also align with so much of my purpose, which would be helping these more dynasty and empire families, power couple families, and also providing and offering things for people that wanted to ascend up that ladder and become great moguls of reality and operate more in that higher identity than what we're most people in the world, the mass population, is taught, versus what the most successful, long-term, wealthy, multi-generational dynasty families are taught, and how they operate, which is a different world of reality. So I come to you with these experiences and understandings, getting to be in those experiences with the particular focus and advisory that myself and my team have had. And it's been very fortunate because it's really taught me a lot. It's given me an opportunity to apply transformational techniques, new technology that I, brought through into the world, into these circumstances, apply them, and have these amazing people feel like, yeah, we want the most advanced stuff. We don't want the old school, sit around for 20 years, 1 hour at a time while, the person is not able to be optimal. That's a long, arduous path. It doesn't make sense in the physics. We've got 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and 1 hour a week to try to get some leverage and transformation in yourself. These people just wanted the absolute best of the best. So it challenged me to create that. I wanted to operate at that level. I wanted to create at that level. And it was really fulfilling because it has allowed me to know that if I can transform people who have these big of lives at this level of stakes, and the ambitions that they have and the things that they're creating and what it means to society, if they operate individually, as couples, as families, as companies, as communities together, if they're operating at a high level, then their effect was massive downstream with how they would, work with their families, their teams. And it was a way to create a great ripple effect. So I've been very, very, very fortunate with that. So with that has allowed me to also have an inside track into how these people are developed, groomed, bred, and strategically advised throughout, even, before, when they're just thought of as, we want to have a new, child, and we want to develop this family this way. This is part of a very different architecture than what most people in humanity are taught and therefore experience. And that determines a lot of different outcomes for people. That keeps, what we can see now is it just keeps making this great divide between, let's just be very generous, say that the top 1%, of course, but there's a huge divide with the top 10%, and the people that are struggling the most, which while people are happy to get better and better at what they do at those echelons, nobody in the world is happy when the mass population is deeply struggling, challenged, exhausted, depressed, anxious, disconnected, dysfunctional, disheartened, suicidal, and not on a great track, right? So, but that's what gets created when different people are given different sets of instructions, have different advantages, have different mindsets, have different paradigms of how to create reality. They have a different language, they have a different energy. And while we are so blessed to now be able to see so many amazing people throughout both history that we can reflect on and throughout our society right now who are emerging and becoming the great influencers and creators and leaders of humanity through content and these kind of platforms, and they're making their way through these different ways of relating to the world and success strategies. um it still what it means is, while there are people emerging out of the regular system of reality that the mass population goes through and is in, versus what the more upper echelon of people and families are doing and receiving, um, there's still a mass population of people who are needing to understand the difference between why their let's just call it training is very different than what the wealthiest people in the world are, how they're training, how they're creating. So I want to give you some insight about the things that I've learned about that and invite you into that world to just start to understand it more than what you just see on the internet and social media. Like, here's my Lamborghini and my mansion, and you can do it and be a crypto bro and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm a crypto fan, crypto gal. um, However, I'm not seeing that people are getting the real insights they need on, also, they may be getting strategies about how to do business and stuff like that, but getting the understanding of the world, the reality, the way in which people exist that and operate, that are at a different level and so far ahead of most of the population, even though there's ways to make up that gap. That this is what this channel is all about, and my company and its training is all about. I want to let you on, inside of that. So this really occurred to me to create this for you, having just recently been at a conference with a group, a beautiful community that is full of people and members that are all part of what's called a family office community, which is a type of wealth community. And it's a group of people that all run or participate and share in the leadership of their family's family office, which is a type of way that the more higher level families, which I refer to as the empire and dynasty families, how they operate, which is a family office structure. And while I've had the benefit over the years of creating different types of, just continually advancing coaching programs, helping people live their purpose, be more successful, transform anything that's happening to them into this more mogul level of reality. It's been a good journey being able to help turn people from leaders into moguls, turn moguls more into making sure they're building great empires and definitely building their family dynasties in a much better way, in a much more intentional way. It just occurred to me in this experience that I just am very privileged to be able to be involved in, that as I'm interacting with these leaders of family offices and just enjoying such a lovely connection and collaboration and just sharing of ideas and how things can improve so these family offices can continue to just achieve all their ambitions for their family's success, for what they're creating for their communities, for society and humanity as a whole. And I really reflected upon how different it is than what most humans on the planet are taught, and the system that they go through to get to where they end up, and how so much difficulty is going on in the world, because I believe there's just such a very different framework, mindset, paradigm. And so I want to just break down a little difference between how this is different, and why these families are able to operate the way that they do so successfully, and why your family, even with your most hardworking, most committed, loyal self, in as much purpose as you know how to be, could also just not be ascending in your trajectory at the level that you want to, and you might be downright just super, struggling. Um, One of the things to understand that, again, is it's very, very important, is that for the mass population, and I can also just, my reference point for, with all due respect to that bias, is the US system. Even though I don't live in the US, I live in the UAE now in Dubai. As a US citizen, as someone who went through that system, and then, put myself through multiple educational experiences to build more refined skills, more skilled capacity to be able to be of service to society. I can tell you one thing that, let's start off with one of the main differences. So, one of the main differences is that the people that are the wealthiest in the world, and there's different versions of that, right? There is older money, as they refer to it, money that's been being continuously made generation after generation in a multi-generational, more of like a dynasty reality, where the family's been creating and creating, and it's carried over generation after generation. Um, and there's also what's referred to as new money, where people might be the first generation, maybe the second generation of wealth, and they're learning to create the reality the way that these great family offices do, and what I really refer to as the dynasty families, even though they don't really refer to themselves that way. They're nervous. If they did, people would really not like it, because people at certain levels are so extremely enraged at people who are very wealthy, that they have to downplay that most of the time, which I don't think is really ideal for anybody. But the first thing to know is that when the mass population, and again, I'll speak about the US as my reference point, and hopefully it kind of applies to most countries, although I know some countries it might be even worse than what goes on in the US, with all due respect to everybody. In the school system in the US, for example, um, the entire process, for the most part, depending on, somebody might be an outlier and going to a very advanced type of private school. But the general experience that the mass population is having is going to school and learning a set of subjects that are not really engaging them, are not really about a forward thinking um, society, getting its and system, getting its people prepared to be top leaders and top moguls and empire builders and dynasty creators of a future that, by everyone's experience, is always going to be dramatically different than the one that they're coming up in. Now, that was already the case, but now that we've gone into the revolutionary age of transformation and technology, and we have now officially left the industrial age, or what people refer to as the age of Capricorn, coming into the age of Aquarius. This is what's creating that. That's what was the age of Capricorn created the industrial age, and the age of Aquarius is creating the age of revolutionary transformation in reality. So people have been for many, 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 many decades and generations being put through a system that I believe was came in somewhere around the 1800s. And again, it was very much designed to take us from more of like what the feudal system had been, the farming uh, age, yeah, the feudal age, and taking people from that into the industrial age with the capitalists and the capitalism, and shifting from all of the owning of all kinds of land and farming that and creating that reality to the capitalist age where there's less land needed, lots of factories, and putting people into becoming workers who are cogs in the wheel of that factory system, which has evolved and become more and more refined in different ways into the world of the corporation and conglomerate and all of that. But that was what this has been built for. And while it may have evolved slightly, and I do use that word very generously, it's ultimately a system designed for that more industrial, rigid infrastructure, factory, whether you're a real factory or corporation, you are a cog in a wheel, you are a follower, you follow along. Even if you lead, you got to like suppress yourself and be this version of a person. And this is what the entire education system is built on all the way through, even though there's, some progressive schools and some advanced universities and all of that. And so for many, many generations now, the mass population has been being put through what I really refer to as slave school. It's about being a worker and being in that system and grooming you to follow orders. And even when you become a leader, you have to be a leader as a follower and follow that system, a very top-down, hierarchical, authoritarian, a teeny bit of room for creativity, but mostly creativity was seen as an outlier. If God forbid you were an artist with a different thinking, creative mind, some right brain thinking. Is a very left brain system, very analytical, very logic based. Again, linear. Was not very three-dimensional, not a very highly metaverse like multi-dimensional world that we're going into. That system worked, especially at the peak of when that prosperity was all going on. And we've been operating on that system for a long time, even though for, I'm going to say 30 to 50 years, we have been steadily heading into the digital age, probably starting with the radio, then the TV, and that was a long stretch, then the phone, computer phone. And now everything is just going to go like warp speed. So while we have been in the end stages of the Industrial Revolution, in the preparation for the revolutionary age of transformational technology, where we'll be in an entirely different reality, we'll be in a 5-dimensional reality instead of a 3D reality, we have continued to stand by this system, producing more and more slave-minded workers who will fall in line, who are afraid of authority, afraid of their shadow, suppressed people who will just fit into this system and follow along and keep order. And that has had people also, which is kind of interesting, had people really, let's just say, just go into this reality where it's like, we may be a family, you spend this certain amount of time together, then you're going to go to school, you're going to go to school, you're going to go through this system, you're going to become a worker slave, you're going to become a worker slave. By the way, we're going to tax you up to half of what you make. So you're a worker, slave, debtor, cog in the wheel, follow the program. And if you do, we will eventually let you out of prison. It's called retirement. And even though you're going to be so worn out and busted up from killing yourself in this system, following along, whether it's suited your sensibilities or not and dampened all of your creativity and your soul, you're likely going to become a healthcare consumer. And then now we've got you on that program and you're going to follow along, and we're just going to keep telling you exactly what to do and what is right. And we are the authority. We're the parent. You are the child. And you're going to follow along. And even if we're lying to you that Santa Claus is real and that this medication works or doesn't, like, you're on this process. You're on we are in charge. We are power. You are disempowered. And what that created is a lot of individual performers, a lot of separate families, even in the best families that have tried to stay together and keep the family together as the tribe. This has continued to just make people these individualistic. You are getting a job. You're on this track. You're on this track. You're on this track. Whatever. You got 5 kids. You got 5 different tracks. Parents are on 7 different tracks. And there's all of these tracks, and people are just trying to be one of these productive members of society, but it also takes away primarily most of the cohesion of the family. And it takes away, for the most part, whatever the power was in the past of a very cohesive family system that was building a reality together, which once was the process where people were like all running the family farm, together, running the reality, running the kingdom, running things together. So we now have and I'm going to get to what I've learned, make sure I share you what I've learned about people who are very, very wealthy and how they do it differently. But this now created more individual people who have these separate families, who have to stay on this track, be workers, which can feel like slaves if most people are honest with themselves. And you're just doing it on your own. And you've got your immediate family, and then you're part of an extended family. But what we know, if your family is anything like mine, when I was young, we were all together and we were more of a unit, and we were building a reality more together. And also we all ended up we're just like, to a great degree, my, different family members have their separate families, and we're barely a unit whatsoever. So we've got multiple different tracks. What that does, by the way, also is put a tremendous amount of strain on the individual, on the also individual family, where it might be you, mom, dad, a couple of kids, maybe if you're an outlier, 4 or 5 kids. But that's all changing. So the absolute strain and struggle is like, we're isolated. And now the more you become these separate unit, the harder it is for families to really help each other, because you go on different tracks. So you're part of an extended family, but you're so many separate families. You're all on different tracks. There's not a joint purpose. It's very rare these days. I hardly, outside of the family office group, people that I am aware of and connected with, very rare for families to truly be together in an alignment of a shared purpose that is bringing everyone through reality together, creating an amazing business of a bunch of joint ventures that are all under an umbrella, making amazing investments and creating a great portfolio and changing the world. Doesn't exist too much in the world of the mass population. So maybe I can delineate between the moguls and the non-moguls. So this is so strenuous, right? That this way of life that is different than the way of life I'm going to share with you about the other, the top, 10%, is that the strain is so great that people don't have time to be together. They don't want to be together. They're fighting amongst each other. They're irritated. They're not a cohesive unit. And it's a very different path, because now you might have a family with 50 members of it and the extended family, but everyone's on a completely different program. Even when the love and care is there, there's not massive purpose, bringing people into connection other than let's be a family and we'll try to keep that together. And what we've seen, and I've definitely seen it in the systems I've been a part of, is that there's nobody in charge. There's nobody that even knows how to step up to lead the family to a higher destiny, to bring say your extended family of 50 people or 40 people, whatever it is. It's just like people are just hanging out occasionally, going through time and space, kind of floating along without any real purpose, any cohesion, and honestly, a massive amount of chaos because you've got so many agendas. And while individualism has been a pretty cool experiment in a lot of ways, we also have a lot of cost to it, which is people are tired, they're sicker, they're disconnected. Nobody has each other's back. Nobody knows how to relate to anybody anymore. Nobody knows how to connect with each other anymore. And you've got this like, you're going to go get a job program. And then everybody just went on a different program. And that's what you thought. You just programmed for that from the beginning, which is different than how it is in the wealthiest of families. So, we've got the data of what those results are. And then you're moving throughout your life. You might go job after job after job and you're trying to ascend. And that's very different than having a full aligned purpose of what it is that the family was literally created to bring into the world, to create in the world, to rally around together and to have a purpose greater than we're related to each other, which I can say as somebody that's been a part of families that their main definition of family is like we're related to each other. Okay. Doesn't really do much for us. And the longer it goes on without any leadership, without any actual direction for a full purpose, without the stewardship of someone leading the family dynasty, if you will, we could say we're related to each other, but for the great degree, most families are not relating with each other at all. They're just dispersing and separating and isolating. And it's a very almost like terrifying journey. Like this is why the stats are that people feel tremendously alone. There's more family strife than ever. And this is what the industrial age of many things it produced, because it produced the material world. It's also produced these outcomes. We are the sickest, most miserable, dysfunctional, addicted, disconnected cohort that has existed in a very long time. With all the riches, right? We're the richest overall, even though that wealth is not evenly distributed, but we're incredibly profoundly downgraded at this point. And that's probably because, as in all good things, there was a ramp up industrial age, capitalism. It created the material world. It showed us what we're capable of. A lot of people did very well. A lot of people died along the way. We thumped our chest, and then we took it so far. Like all good things. It's like have a couple of drinks, it's one thing. Have 5 drinks, and now you're saying stupid shit that you don't mean, and having a headache the next day. So we went so far in it that even when we were getting an indication we're dysfunctional, we need to do something different, it had so much momentum, this industrial age, leading into the age of transformation. Thank God there's a reason that one follows the other. That most people were just like, whatever, this is how it is, this is how everyone is. Everyone around me is the same. We're all cogs in a wheel, just in the slave system. Maybe someone will break out here or there, in a 50-person family, maybe 1 or 2 people are really kicking ass. And nobody, was on the program of like what the wealthiest families do, which is very different, including the fact that they have family advisors for everything that they want to be successful in. Very, very important. Very, very different than you're supposed to be a good boy, good girl, go get your job, You're right over here, your sister's over there, you're all over the plate. We don't have any shared purpose. And then when you're not doing well, you're not supposed to say you're not doing well because you're supposed to be so amazing all on your own as this individual, like it's an individual sport, which is not ideal. It's not, there's no leverage in that. And people are doing something very different, having literally observed most of the people that I have cared about most in my life personally, not be willing to actually be like, hey, what we're doing isn't actually working the way we want it to. It's not as functional as we want. We're not as connected. Like, it would just be like, we can't even say we have a problem. We have to just pretend. We can't go to therapy. We can't get coaching. We can't get an advisor. We can't get a family strategic planner or anything like that. And this goes on. People do this. They run companies. They don't have any consultants. It's like unbelievable what I see people doing from the industrial age. It's like, I have to be so perfect and know everything. I can't admit that I'm needing support, which is the number one thing that I will say is the difference between the mass population and the wealthy population. They bring in as many advisors, experts in every single area as they possibly can to bring their whole system of reality along. Now it's getting better that they're bringing in more psychologists, therapists, coaches, and consultants and advisors, like myself, more than they did before, because they were also part of that concept. They were at the effect of that concept, which is like, you're just supposed to keep it, present an image, keep it, your hidden suffering behind here. And then, in some cases, some of these amazing families did have had really difficult experiences. Like if we take the Walton family, who've got the Walmart, the Dynasty, there's tons of issues going on in that family. So it tells me they don't have the psychological advisors on board. Or if they do, they're not knowing what they're doing very well. So the top families in the world have advisory. Call it whatever you want. I don't know why this all got down to like somebody's struggling and now we're calling it, it's therapy, so I can't go to it. It's coaching, so that means I failed if I have to get help. It's this, that. It's like the smartest people in the world, the richest people in the world pay advisors who are experts in a subject matter area to make sure they get that expertise. They're not depending on the freaking school system to teach that, because it's obviously not available. They're wanting the best of the best because they're like, my entire life, myself, my family, my wealth, my empire, my dynasty, my relationship all depends on it. They are people that literally seek out and they invest in advisory. Now that leads to a second part about the difference between them and the mass population. And that is that they are developed, trained in their upbringing, groomed, bred to be investors, right? To be more of that investor type of person versus the worker. Go get a job, go, the slave system, which has, I think at the top of the slave system is like the entrepreneur, but a lot of entrepreneurs end up still being workers and slaves in their company, even though they create it and they create freedom. I can really tell you this, that becomes a big issue because they end up staying in the slave worker mentality, because the difference is more of that mogul identity, which is a powerful, influential person, an investor in themselves as their greatest asset is what they're giving to the world. An investor with collaborators who are co-investing in things, and they're people who they're taking money and making more out of their money by investing it rather than using just they're not about like, hey, let me use my slave labor of my physical body and put it through hell and see how much I can earn per hour that is a very different thing than the slave worker mentality, which is, again, bred into people in the slave system, which the mass population typically starts getting this indoctrination from the time they're born. Like, they're going to go to this school and that school. In the wealthy communities, the wealthy families, it's like this person's going to be more of a mogul type, a titan, a tycoon. Back in the day, it would have been a nobleman, a baron, a earl, a prince, a king and queen, and all of this. So they're not groomed, developed, bred, trained to just think about, let me get a job and trade my time for money and see how I can hold up trying to get a raise in my salary or my hourly wage. They're taught to be investors who take money, put it into something strategically that will have leverage and expand and bring them more money while building something amazing. So this is a big difference. We've got that investor mindset. Very, very different. And I invite you, right, to start to make these two shifts and make these upgrades in your programming, right? So first of all, from slave to master, right, of your reality, from worker to leader, right, which will bring you through struggle to mogul and powerful, influential person. And instead of being just this worker selling time, you're an investor that is multiplying resources exponentially, because that is the most incredible aspect of what they do. And it's just, they just in that comfort zone, just invest, 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 invest. And this is a very different reality that's taught. I can pretty much say that I probably went through all of my schooling, at least the first part until universities, never hearing that word. And thank God it was part of my dad's repertoire as more of a mogul type person who was investing. Let's just keep it real. And investing can mean all kinds of things, multiple revenue streams. Essentially, investing is people who are very comfortable essentially placing a bet on something that it's going to do this or that, predicting it, and building something out in a lot of respects and allowing their money to multiply. Now, the other thing that is the difference between the population and what I've learned from hanging with some of the world's wealthiest people, and really, again, having more of that opportunity just recently, in a larger group of like over 100 of the top family offices in the world, and their the leaders of those here in the UAE. It was a really beautiful gathering. Again, they're not on some program which is just like, I'm gonna go do this, you're gonna, like, all this separation, you're over here, you over here, and the family will just become cogs in a wheel, raising people to go, make money in some other mogul's venture. They're not necessarily just taught, like, you're going to go be a cog in a wheel for another great mogul entrepreneur and make them all the money and give all your life force to that. They're taught to create. They're taught more to be that entrepreneur, to build, start companies, as they're just taught more. This is just normal. Like in mass population, we're taught that's a risk. And in the wealthy population, they would see it as a risk to just spend your whole life in the job making money for some other mogul, selling time for money and not getting to create your own masterpiece. So that would be risky, because at any point someone can just say, I don't want you on board anymore, and we're changing things and you have no say in it, which happens to a lot of people. So it's just a mindset. We think it's less risky to be in a job and more risky to be an entrepreneur. And in the world of wealthy people, it's just a different mindset. They're like investors, creators, builders of empires and dynasties. And while they don't speak all of that empire dynasty language to people outside of their world necessarily. That's their thought process. That's more of what at least the internal language is, that they're going to continue to build upon what they have, build out the empire more, make a beautiful dynastic family empire. So the other aspect of it is, again, a lot of these people come into the world and then they're already getting to just participate in what a family office is, which is typically, even if, say, there was just one family business, but it was big or whatever it was, typically there's a portfolio of businesses that they have because they keep building on it generation after generation, investing. They've got all kinds of investments in all kinds of areas, very creative, taking all this wealth. They're so wealthy that they have to keep making sure the wealth gets channeled into more exponential leveraging instruments, be it companies or funds or whatever it is. And they need a whole system to make sure that that money comes in and then gets created into something more exponential for the continuous wealth flow. Very different than like someone gets a job, and even if they got this huge raise, or even if they were entrepreneurs and created something so great, a lot of people just blow all that money because they don't know the system that a family office does, which is its own organization that then has the different parts of the portfolio, this business, this investment, that investment. Versus, I'll even take my own family having a company. The company was just the instrument. And while that was fine, and we started a couple of companies, went, I think, 49, almost 50 years at this point. Saying thank you to my dad and rest in peace for having that idea. That is still something that is very important and needs to really be a thought process for people who are thinking, I'm going to get a job or I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and these are my options. Even if I'm going to build and scale as an entrepreneur, thinking differently that I'm going to have a family office, which is that we are essentially a business and we're going to have these different aspects of the dynasty, of the portfolio. And even though the people that I engage with that are heads of family offices, they don't typically use the word dynasty, and yet I wish that they would, because it would take their stuff to another level. But they say that they would just get booed out of everything, if they use that language to other people. But make no mistake about it, when you trace back all of reality and what the most successful families have done in history, they created dynasties. The family was the business, and they created all of this wealth in these different areas. We see that, interestingly, with some new money with like the Kardashian family, and they have all these different businesses, and the family is now its own family office that has all these aspects of the portfolio. So I'm going to invite you all to think a little differently. And instead of just thinking I'm going to get a job, or I'm going to be an entrepreneur, or I might be a leader, or I'll go toward being a bigger mogul and scaling a business, is about understanding that if you're here to build an empire and a dynasty, and that is its own entity, which can then have the different things in it. It's its own infrastructure. It has its own legal structure and strategy to it. It's its own system of reality that allows multiple businesses, multiple ventures, multiple investments, funds talk about flowing revenue streams, so that there's an entire system that the streams flow into and keep producing more and more of itself, because the last thing you want is the money to be sitting idle, because you're not going to make anything off like a savings account, even with their level. And it's all about putting it into having a system that manages it, puts it into more and more instrumentation that can grow it and make it exponential, creating millions and millions and billions and pretty soon trillions and trillions of resources, of wealth that will keep carrying these families through generation after generation after generation after generation, where they have more money for the next 20 generations to utilize to keep doing the same thing, exponentially making it bigger, better, longer, building upon it in this long stream of multi-generational wealth that is developed and they're groomed to be able to do this. It's a very different paradigm than I'm going to go get a job. And even in some great families where it's like, my daughter's a doctor, my son's a lawyer, my other daughter is an artist, or whatever, all the great success. If we don't have this understanding of like the family as a dynasty, which is a group of co-rulers, leaders, co-leaders creating a reality, making an entity that has a larger purpose that's taking us through reality, where we can then, through our themes, our purposes, the things that really matter to us, the things that we care about that define us. It used to be like the family crest and all of that, but like, what are our principles, morals, and values, leading us to go into ventures such as this, create businesses that are going to come into an empire, build a dynasty that is all encompassing with different parts of the portfolio that support in the most beautiful way. I find this the greatest art in the world because I am so about family and so about the dynasty level success. That's what's in my DNA in my human design, what I'm designed to help people with. The most beautiful piece of art that I ever see is a beautiful dynasty family who has created life this way, has a family office as the entity, right? Because it's not get a job or maybe an entrepreneur. It's let's build a dynasty. And if it's been going on for many generations, then they know they're going to keep it going. Because when you've taken it so far and you happen to get your business off the ground and be one of the only 25% of businesses that ever succeed, generation after generation, you want to iterate. And a company that was a certain way is now going to be a new way. It's going to be that way. It's going to keep evolving and iterating and innovating so that it can go so far out. It's 50 years, 60, 100, 200, 300. And they're looking way far out to create the wealth that will take care of their heirs generation after generation. In, again, what I think is the most beautiful piece of art, which is the family dynasty. The family office, that is the entity. All the extended family ideally has a purpose in what they're doing to bring that whole portfolio of businesses, investments, and wealth flow into the next level, using the next generation creates in a new way, and it keeps giving everybody a base to start with, because most of the population starts at zero and has to make everything themselves. Not necessary. So the mass population keeps being like, you're starting at zero, then my kid starts at zero, then my grandkids. These families are literally creating exponential wealth because they have a different paradigm of reality that they're operating in. And this is what I'm excited about for all of you to be thinking about differently, to be thinking about a cohesive family dynasty creation for your reality as a different instrument, a different architecture and infrastructure that allows you to go through reality together with a shared purpose, mission, themes, brand, creations, contributions, strategies, collaborations that allow you to do the purpose that you were created to do as a family unit, that gives you the ability to be together, flow together, grow together. Call it a business, call it a family. When you're at the highest levels, it's literally one reality. It's all merged and cohesively flowing together. It's not like your personal life and just your professional. It's like we're creating a dynasty, we're creating empires, and we're creating reality and wealth for generations and generations. And that is why these people all get to start from a different level. So I'm really excited for all of you to be able to just get that this is a different version of reality. It's a different way of thinking, and to start to open up to it and consider how you too, as you're thinking about this, hold on a second. So as you're thinking about this, just consider the way in which you are currently operating and how it feels and what you might be able to do differently. Consider, is this how you want to continue? Right? It's an important question. So as you're taking this all in, as you're connecting to how you might want to do things differently, my invitation for you is to connect with, how's it going the way you guys are operating? How is your family? How is your career? Are any of these components going well at the level you want to? Does it feel like there are all these in separate silos that you're trying to keep flowing and going, and it feels impossible? Does it feel like you're all getting to be as successful as you want to be by doing it this individualistic way? You know better than me. Does it feel like it could be something rewarding to begin to think about being more of a dynasty family? Being people who realize that just because we came through an era called the industrial era, where we went again from the feudal era, feudalism, where people literally ran the family farm together and built their business together, even though, they created their version of portfolio and assets and all of this stuff in a different way, but where there was this cohesion, there was pulling together, there was everybody as a resource toward the family mission and what that created. That's its own research. And just because we came through the industrial age, where everybody became an individualist, but yet a cog in the wheel, and we devoted everything to these companies, other people's companies typically, until maybe some people became an entrepreneur and started to shift that. While we have also had plenty of family companies in the world, the truth is a lot of the family companies are, of course, we know they're the dynasty families, but a lot of the family companies are also suffering from, and they're the smaller ones typically, from the fact that they don't have a family office. They just have the family company. They don't have this infrastructure. They don't have this architecture. They don't have this sense of creating more, creating exponential wealth. They're still running their family company on just the backbreaking labor of themselves, and maybe their kids want to go into it. But I can tell you, I was definitely hesitant because I was like, this doesn't look fun. You guys are not having fun here. They were doing, in my family, they were doing business as entrepreneurs, but they're also doing it as like still with the kind of the slave labor experience. Not necessarily ever developing a family office, and that's a story for another day, but my family doesn't necessarily do something that I would really recommend, which is part of the family office thing that I want to say that I really learned that they're doing differently, which is they're actually very tuned in to the next generation. So where my family was not really wanting to listen to what I thought would be beneficial for us, having transformational support, having a whole different, level of success, making that priority, having the great advisories that would make it so we would be so cohesive in what we were doing and pool all of this power and amazing energy that we have together. And again, that's a different story for a different day, but the family office community, these dynasty families, they are essentially doing something where they're keeping the family together. They're keeping them aligned on a purpose and mission, and that's where I come in, and what I do with these families make sure that that happens, because they also have their struggles too. And they're bringing the great resource of their own people. They're bringing that into taking the talents of the different family members, putting it toward a higher purpose of creation, a higher set of goals and ambitions, which can only happen when you're pooling energy together, you're collaborating. I mean, what can be made? We know these dynasty families have been making the greatest wealth in that has ever existed in human history. And we also know that all the dynasties of the kings and the queens and the royalty, it was like, it's all about the royal family, and it's all about us, and we're creating everything we want, and everyone else is working for us. And that's what all the peasants did. So some things have shifted, some things haven't. They may have a different name. They may also be veiled in a different way. My invitation for you is to see the differential between how you're thinking about this and how you can think differently. Imagine having a family that had a mission, a purpose beyond, we're just going to be a family, right? We're a family, which everybody thinks this is the big thing, right? We're a family. I have a career and I have a family. What if you were here to build empires and have a great multi-generational wealthy family dynasty full of a portfolio of companies and investments and flowing wealth for generation after generation, not having to start all over again, because somebody worked so hard their whole life, but then spends all the money at the end on all the healthcare, and there's nothing left, and the whole thing starts all over again because the wealth wasn't put into exponential creation of more of it. And the growth is not possible when families are dispersed into these isolated sub families within the family system that are more at war with each other than any other time I've ever seen things going on in my lifetime. And I can say that as someone that really uh, was excited in the time frame that my family felt like we were more on a dynasty track, at the times that we needed the most advisory to help us take all of the privilege and awesomeness that we had and bring us together in a new chapter where it was like time for a new chapter. Having that advisory would have been so much more beneficial, because we could have taken what would be next. What new company should we start? What should we sell this company? Should we start another one? Should we transform this one into something else? Should one person in the family run this, but now a new in the family start something new? I'm positive, even though my dad isn't with us anymore, that at one point my dad wanted to start. He would have loved if we started a transformation company, which I eventually started. But without that advisory from the older generations, uh, getting advisors in the way that the big family dynasty family office groups do, you may miss out on this opportunity. Things may go by the wayside. Someone may not want to take over the family company, which was how it was in my case. It goes to someone else who may or may not want it, but tries to keep it going. And something that was built and created as a mechanism and a vehicle that could just be transformed into its new form, things can only go to a certain degree unless we have strategic advisory, a larger cohesion with a family understanding. Let's not be a bunch of workers on separate tracks. Let's have a dynasty and build empires within that dynasty. Let's create multi-generational wealth. Let's be power couples within this, the kings and the queens and the princes and the princes. Right? Let's grow together. This is something that these families do differently. And again, I'm inviting you to know these kinds of things, which is, imagine if you were constantly learning and growing as a family unit how to build an empire and a dynasty type level reality for yourselves, how to build generational wealth. Does it make any sense that everybody's just sitting around watching, Netflix together rather than learning and growing and learning about every opportunity, learning about your investing money and mergers and acquisitions and joint ventures and partnerships and every kind of architecture that you can flow money through that will keep expanding it. And the way in which these families are instruments that continue to develop and invest in more aspects of society, other people's ventures that yield benefits for them and this particular family. It's a very different reality. And I, in this particular video and this upgrade for you, am literally only scratching the surface. So I know this is a lot for you to consider, to take in. It's a very powerful paradigm shift, and I'm really excited for you to consider these things and think about how things might be different for you and the people that you love if you were operating in a different paradigm. More of this family office paradigm, more of this dynasty creating, multi-generational dynasty creating opportunity that is there, that would simultaneously bring you forward in more cohesion, purpose, mission, which we have to have. If we don't have a set of shared intentions and ambitions as a unit that is larger than just the individual tracks people are on, there's very little chance people are going to stay together and go together down the path and the trajectory. There's very little chance that with a bunch of subfamilies within a family, anyone is going to operate at their top level. There's likely no way you're going to have the best grouping of businesses and investments you could ever have and the best family cohesion keeping you together throughout the generations. I mean, we just see what society is now. Isolated, separate, lonely, dysfunctional, addicted people who are exhausted trying to do. It's like I just see everybody like trying to run on the treadmill, and you're just like this individual group, or maybe there's like a family of 3 or 4, maybe 5, and then these family offices are like all these family members are like, we got a mission, we got a purpose, we're going on that track, we're just going to keep building generation after generation, more of the portfolio, more businesses, bigger, more innovative, transform it, go through this process, use all the advisors we can, keep moving it forward, innovating it, changing it, taking it, the next generation takes it and makes it into this thing, and then the next generation, and the next one. And at a minimum, these people have a shared purpose that is bigger than their individual goals, which they have as well, and then find a way to build the portfolio out. Different family members and the things they want to create are part of the family office, the dynasty level portfolio. It's a very different thing. And I can really see the difference if I just take my own example, which I'll use to help support you and yours. While my dad started a business that has gone for almost 50 years and he's not with us anymore, I could see what would have happened at different points if we even had the thought process that each of us in the family, including when I started to be up and coming, wanted to be an entrepreneur, did not want to have to go into corporate, but certainly did not want to go into necessarily the industry. It just wasn't interesting to me that my family has been in. If we could have just been, it's time to create a new family business as part of the family business portfolio, adding to our family office and building our dynasty and pooling these resources and using what we've already learned. What do we want to create next? This would have been my transformation company. It's the company that my dad and I would have created together. And I think it would have been incredibly profoundly successful, building off of the success that he had. And instead, he's over here doing his thing, they're over there doing their thing, and I, created my company without those family members. I created my company more on my own and building a separate team. And while that was fine, I can say that I've loved my team very much, but it would have been amazing for my family members and I to create a portfolio of a variety of businesses that are thematically symbiotic together in an ecosystem, like family offices do, like dynasties are, that also just, again, protect you, and they diversify and create. If COVID happens and now you have an events company and that isn't working, you've got this other opportunity. Instead of what we saw, like COVID happened and people just tanked because they have this one. Either, even if you had a job, you might have lost it, and if you had a company, you had one company, it didn't work. And it's because we've been given, in the mass population in the slave system called school, these two choices. Different paradigm, because it's infinite levels of creation. So, like, I can just think about, at a point with which my dad had built a beautiful, successful retail operation and wanted to, basically, his goal was to transform people's lives. And that was happening, like, at a time when I was literally feeling the same way, becoming a psychologist. And instead of us seeing, like, hey, we are here to do this together, and this would build us closer together, and it would build more of the wisdom, and then the new generation of the new innovations and all of that, combining the best of what the family office groups do. First generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, more and more, keeping a chain in the lineage of the expertise and wisdom of the earlier pioneers of that family system, all the way through the next generation, instead of everybody just starting over with some new job, which is just nothing more than a result of the Industrial Revolution and a change of priorities. And fortunately, we're coming into the new age. We are firmly in the digital age. We are now, fortunately, again, in the full-blown opportunity where we're not required to be in a particular location. People have awoken more, that we're not talking about one job or having one company. We're talking multiple revenue streams. We're talking portfolios. We're talking creativity, which is the other hallmark of the family office system, which is more creativity. They're not operating on someone else's paradigm. They're looking to be innovative, and they're looking to take what they have built and keep building on it rather than restarting it, like most families do when someone's, like, going through school and now they're going to go get a job and start at zero and build everything up. Which, how could you ever compete with them? How could you ever get up to a certain level when you're always starting from zero? When the top families of the world are just keep building and building and building, and the more money they have, the more that money makes, and it's just a continuum. And I'm just inviting all of you to come more into this understanding of what is available for you, how you can look at this differently, and how you can shift and start to consider, are you here to just be an individual contributor? Are you here to shift the paradigm? Are you here to just have a job? Are you here to just be an entrepreneur that also just has a job with a little bit more freedom, but probably more work? Or are you here to build an empire? And even greater, besides these beautiful empire businesses, is, are you here to build a family dynasty? Which is what these family offices are, where the family dynasty is its own company with its own name, and everything else sits in that. It is literally an architecture, it is an ecosystem, it is literally their own economy, which is why so many of them have, some of the levels of resources and wealth more than some countries. And it just keeps expanding exponentially, because the more you have, the more it just keeps making more of itself in what money generates. So instead of your labor time crushing your own physical self creating it, it's literally having money create more of itself, which is how physics works. And they understand this other paradigm. And the higher purpose besides the individual is what the family is building for the next generation, and the one after that, and the one after that. And I loved that I was part of a family where my dad thought that way. Like, I want to keep building something more for you and for your kids. And he also just didn't know what the full architecture was. And so that could cause difficulty and didn't allow us to iterate and innovate at the level that would have been really, really beneficial, having all the other pieces in place. So that's why I love what I do. That's why I love creating, using my psychological expertise, my success coaching, transformational technology methodology to help these families create more of this, because they're a template for society. They're a template for you to follow. They're doing more to create for their communities and society and humanity as a whole, because all these resources they can funnel into helping other entrepreneurs and ventures, and they're so massively philanthropic. They're getting to do what I know you all want to do, which is to create a reality that's high, to live in a beautiful purpose with your family, to be power couple partners and have a purpose with you in your partnership beyond attraction and whatever this fantasy fairy tale reality is of like romance is your big priority, which is fine to care about it, but your purpose is your priority. Something much greater than you that is trying to be created through you, with you as co-leaders of a dynasty that could go on generation after generation. And I'm inviting you to that, because instead, what families are experiencing, even though everybody is earnestly working their absolute self to the bone, grinding themselves into a pulp, getting sicker and sicker and more miserable, is you've got the opportunity to make this paradigm shift, to create a reality from the get-go of something that really matters to all of you, that is thematic, that is in your values, that is been handed down generation after generation. We care about, I'm thinking of one of our families, like fun, flexible, freedom family, or the, bliss, happy, fun family, or, just the different themes that you have, the respectful, honorable, builder family, right? Whatever these things are, everybody's got different themes. Building something like that for yourself that truly gives you all a greater purpose than just we're a person, we're brother, we're sister, we're mom, we're dad, we're uncle, we're aunt. We're just hanging out together, floating through space without any stewarding, without any direction, without a purpose, without a shared purpose to keep us united in something greater than ourselves. And what is the family contribution to society then? And why does it all have to be just an individual thing? It's a lot more stressful. So we have so many great family examples of dynasties and empires that have made their mark on reality, brought us through to this stage. And the good news is you have an opportunity to do it better, to do it differently, to use the template of the more dynasty level family office, wealthier people in humanity who see it very differently. And we're not talking about the typical dysfunctional family business that nobody wants to join when their dad and mom want them to. We're talking about an elegant architecture of a family economy, like it's your own reality, it's your own world. It's literally an economy. And I love all the different people that I know and have met along the way that help the family create that financial economy part of how everything flows to maximize all of it. I love being a part of creating how everybody psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and tactically, and very, very purposefully, and in a mission oriented way helps create, what is this family brand? What do we stand for? What are we here for? What are we contributing? What are we doing? What is this all about? And creating something that benefits everyone in the family, gives everyone a purpose and role, gives everyone a way to make a contribution, can bring everybody closer together. And when done right and done with the right advisory, so like someone like me also helps keep them out of conflict, which is very important, necessary. What can be created in this kind of purposeful, harmonious focus and strategy and elegant architecture is why it's worth millions and millions more and billions. Because when you do it the other way that the mass population is taught, I hate to say it, everyone, but you're leaving millions and millions of dollars and probably billions of dollars on the table generation after generation. And if we take the two different things and we say this family has made 30 billion along the way, and your family is starting at zero every single time because they're on a different paradigm. Theoretically, if we compare that, that might be costing your family generation after generation, and what it would have be at this point, $30 billion, because you're on the wrong system, the wrong paradigm, the wrong strategy, without the advisors, without the transformative architecture, and the ability to create a reality at the dynasty level. So I'm really excited for all of you to have been tuning in, receiving these upgrades. I know it's a lot of them. I really thank you for being open to growing and coming into a whole higher level of intentionality for a higher reality, for a dynasty family, and for just a very different ultimate destiny that can just get created by you this round, in this life, in this generation, with you, your partner, your kids, whichever role you're in right now. If this is the kids watching this, get your parents on board, and you can be the turning point in the lineage of your family system that has somehow made it this far out, all of the centuries it has been going, branching off into this reality that you are now. You can be the turning point. You can be the people who do what these family offices had done, which was somewhere along the way, one of their great family members in that system, what the grouping that said, we are here to do this differently. They built something and then kept building on it and coming into this architecture, because it just takes the people that are in it right here, right now, to say, I don't care about what I learned before that is wrong and wasn't the best thing for us. I don't care what came before me, other than I appreciate that my ancestors brought me to this point and we're here now. I don't care what other people are doing who don't know about this. My neighbors and friends are highly unlikely to have a clue about this and probably will poo-poo it anyway. It doesn't matter if the people around you at this point know about this or doing this, and it's really not about anymore just fitting in, going along, belonging, and doing whatever the Joneses next door are doing. This is about an opportunity for a paradigm shift, or what I refer to in my third book as a pattern shift, into an upgrade of being that is so transformative that it is literally worth billions of dollars and probably more through the generations of your family to come. Just because a small percentage of the population that does this and has all the wealth at the top is not something, that you have access to every day, I'm letting you know that one of the things you can do for yourself is to tune into this channel, to connect with this content, to watch any and all of it you can possibly get into yourself and into your energy system. This is about being moguls, power couples, empire builders, and dynasty creators. This is about being multi-generationally wealthy and the pattern of multi-generational dysfunction and difficulty stopping with you. This is about having it all: your family, companies, your empires, your dynasty, and not by working harder and harder and working into yourself into the bone. It's a different, elegant architecture. It's a different identity. It's a different reality. And it does mean you're going to transform and grow. You're going to reprogram. You're going to unlearn the things that were not right for you, that thanks that they brought you this far. You're going to learn the ways of the healthy, wealthy, and the multi-generational dynasty makers and their template and what I'm sharing with you. For many years, I've been running this and doing this in my coaching company. And for the first time this year, even though I've built some content here on this channel over the years, I'm putting more and more of it into reality here this year for your benefit. Every piece of content that you can take in is going to transform you. And you can also subscribe and like and share this with other people that you want to know about this. You can join the community and follow along where I am leading and guiding people each day right now. And at this point, it is being provided in a very philanthropic way. I'm providing content that people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a year, millions and millions of dollars for over the years. And the transformational process that goes to the people at the highest level. You have the opportunity to receive this, and it's going to take a commitment. And it's not, this is a time frame where you're not going to go do all these other things that are distracting you from the very thing that's going to change your life, which is this channel, this content, and moving yourself in the direction. So if it's actually something that is right and makes sense for you, you may even be able at some point to become a client and receive all of the top of everything and become someone that is like the top people in humanity that have the great advisories, making sure that they continue along this track of a multi-generational family dynasty. And this is available to you too. But the steps in this direction are also something I'd like you to do, which are to make a comment. If you want to build a multi-generational family dynasty, comment, let me know. Let me know you're interested, because I'm very curious to see who the people are who are ready to transform, lead at a new level, rise up into the top levels of dynasty making leadership in the age of AI, and do it differently, which is going to be required by everybody either way. But it is ideal, instead of trying to go it alone, to look at creating your own dynastic empire and building a multi-generational family dynasty. Keep tuning in, keep upgrading. Thanks to all of you for being here and really moving this upgrade. Thanks so much, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.